Hey guys, today we are going to do an episode on different building construction techniques in the desert.
Hey, so I'm Carrie.
And I'm Doug.
And we're in the process of making the move from living in an urban area near Denver, Colorado. We're planning on moving off-grid to property that we just purchased in Southeast Arizona. So if you're new to our channel, make sure and like and subscribe, and always leave us a comment, and you can follow along with us on this journey.
And if you stick to the end, we are going to depend on your input on a initial structure we plan on putting on that desert property that we bought, a utility shed, and we'd really like to see your feedback. So stick to the end and give us some feedback on this design that we're putting out.
Yeah, so we took a look at several different construction types for the desert specifically, and I think most of you already know that have been following along with us that we did choose to do an Earthbag type construction. And we did want to kind of share with you, though, the other types of construction that we looked into, kind of the pros and the cons. So we're going to look at basically three main types of construction. Traditional builds, which would also include things like tiny houses and shed conversions. And then we also looked at rammed earth construction. And we also looked at, of course, Earthbag construction. So we're going to go over each one of those with you today. Okay, so we want to start by talking about traditional construction. I'm going to actually go through all the pros that we thought of when we were looking at that type of construction. So the main thing for us with traditional construction is it's what we both have the most experience with. I've flipped houses here in the Denver metro area, and I'm very comfortable with traditional construction and building codes and things like that. So for us, that would be a huge benefit. So that's definitely a pro. The other pro about traditional construction is there's lots of different styles and types that would encompass traditional construction, such as tiny houses, even shed to home conversions can be considered traditional construction. And then there's tons of different styles. You know, you can go mid-mod style, you can do country style, there's all these different styles, and there's blueprints that are widely available for those different types of styles. So finding a blueprint, you know, and not having to create it ourselves would probably be a huge benefit for that traditional style construction. The other big piece about traditional construction is the supplies that you need to build it are typically going to be very widely available. You know, you can get them at the big box stores, and you wouldn't have any trouble finding things like that. Although, since we're still in the middle of COVID and we're having a major supply chain crisis right now, finding those traditional supplies might be a big challenge for us. And not to mention, and this is kind of a con too, but they're very expensive right now. Things are crazy. We've heard that 2x4s, you know, normally you can get for $4 or $5. You're paying, you know, well over $20 or sometimes $30. So the other part of traditional construction is it does hold its value really well. So not everybody is into rammed earth or earth bag houses. So you're kind of limiting your market if it is something that you want to resell with, you know, something that's not traditional construction, where that holds its value really well. The other piece about traditional construction is you're going to go through the regular building permit process, where you're not necessarily going to go through that with the non-traditional types of construction. So because of that, a traditionally constructed house holds its value better, and it's more appealing for resale.
Right, so I'm going to be the thumbs down guy and tell you the downside to traditional houses in the desert. The desert has very harsh weather, extreme sunshine, extreme winds, and traditional houses are typically made of wood. Wood does not, unless you treat it for the sunshine and everything like Shuggy Band style or something like that, it's going to disintegrate within a matter of a couple, you know, decades. The wood just does not hold up outside in the desert. Also, traditional building is very, very expensive. And like Carrie said, the stores during COVID, our supply shortages that seem to be coming on is driving prices up. And so it would be very, very expensive for us to build a traditional house in the desert or anywhere for that matter right now. Other thing is, not everybody has experience with building traditional houses. They don't know the codes. They don't know how to assemble houses like that. So they're going to have to end up purchasing these extra expenses in buying an architect or hiring contractors or something to come in and do the work for them. The other thing is traditional houses aren't made to withstand. In England, and that they call our American houses cardboard boxes because they're basically flimsy compared to those stone houses that they're accustomed to over there in the old world. The traditional houses typically aren't fireproof, sketchy on natural disasters. They're not bulletproof. And traditional houses typically have a lot of toxic materials involved with building them, so that eventually you won't be around to see this, but when the house deteriorates and everything, all these poisons get into the ground below, and that's what you get to leave to your grandchildren, right? Now that we're done talking about traditional houses, the pros and cons, we're going to move on to rammed earth, which was another style that we were looking heavily into and doing our diligent study upon it.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about the pros of rammed earth houses. We actually started out thinking that was what we were going to build, but the more we researched it, we'll explain why we didn't choose that on the con side.
They're very beautiful, definitely.
Oh, they're absolutely gorgeous, and especially in a desert type situation, it's beautiful how it blends in. Rammed earth houses are, some of the pros are going to be they're actually very insulative, so that's important, because where we bought our property, even though yes it's in Arizona, sometimes it can get super hot and sometimes it can get really cold, so we're kind of in the higher elevation part of the Arizona southeast, so the insulation piece is important. They're also extremely durable. I had no idea about rammed earth. I know I've seen them before, but I didn't realize how durable they are, because you're compacting that earth together in such a way that it almost turns it into, I would call it like concrete, like very, very durable.
And there's rebar in it.
So some of the other benefits about rammed earth houses are they are very environmentally friendly. So because you're making them with typically the dirt that's on your property, it's just much more environmentally friendly than a traditional home. They're also very sturdy and durable. So a rammed earth home, if you do it right, it can withstand those winds. It can totally handle sun and all that stuff that the desert type atmosphere is going to throw out at you. So rammed earth houses are very durable. Rammed earth houses also provide a high level of pest protection. So again, being in the desert, that's something that we need to look at. There are lots of snakes out there and bugs, termites, things like that you don't want getting into your walls. So they can't with the rammed earth. It would be like having to go through concrete. So.
Some of the cons for rammed earth is that if your dirt is not the right kind of soil, you are going to have to import that, and that can get very costly. Rammed earth can typically be a low-cost project, or it can run into being more expensive than even a traditional house, and those costs would accumulate via labor. So the labor involved is very intense. The other con that I disliked about it is you have to buy forms and they're pretty hardcore forms. Some of them are made of metal, and then you backfill in between the forms, then you remove them. And just to build those forms, I would imagine is probably the equivalent of putting up a stud wall, so you're putting up these rammed earth molds, which is the equivalent of building a traditional house anyways, and you're backfilling it. So I almost think that this technique's made mostly for the people with the deep pockets, Rammed earth, after you assemble it, is going to have to be insulated because it's so dense that it radiates the heat or it captures the heat, but it might do it at times that you don't want it to be. If you want the house to be warm, it's holding the warmth in the walls instead of letting it go and radiating in there to your benefit. Typically, rammed earth, you want to stick to about a one-story house. You don't want any walls going up too high, and you can imagine why. If you do so, you're going to have to heavily reinforce it with rebar. Typically, rammed earth construction, you have to stick with squares and rectangles. There's no rounded corners or anything like this. Also, when you go to the bank to get approved for constructing this house, you might run into some problems with the bank. They don't like to give out loans for this type of construction. And also with rammed earth, you're going to have the issue with really long cure time, so you're not going to be able to move into that house right away.
So next up on our list is going to be Earthbag construction. And as we mentioned earlier, that is the type of construction that we've selected for our off-grid property in the southeast Arizona desert. And one of the main reasons that we chose Earthbag construction was for the benefit of the cost. It's extremely inexpensive to build an Earthbag house, and we really want to pay cash as we go, as we develop our property. We actually don't want to have to take a bank loan for many reasons, mainly because we probably wouldn't qualify for one. So we kind of want to keep it on the lower expense side. Earthbag houses are very easy to build. It's not something that you need a high level of skill to be able to build, and it's really important for Doug and I to be able to build the house ourselves. We actually don't want to have to hire out contractors or extra help just because of the expense. So the fact that we can do it ourselves very easily, that's a huge piece. The other part about Earthbag construction is it's extremely durable. So very similar to rammed earth houses, with Earthbag houses, you get a very good ability to withstand natural disasters. It's really pretty fireproof because it's not made of wood. It's made of essentially dirt. So you get really good compacted dirt that does behave a lot of times like concrete. So it could be bulletproof, fireproof, it's going to be windproof, it's going to withstand the sun very, very well as long as you use an exterior coating that is good for the desert type weather. So that's important. The other thing that we thought was really cool about Earthbag houses is you can actually design them in many different styles. We've looked at doing really straight flat walls. We've also looked at doing curved walls, and we've looked at doing kind of a hybrid of both. So you get a lot of flexibility with your design. You can make them more than one story, although we probably won't do that. We'll probably have some sort of basement type area that would act kind of like as our root cellar and storage area, maybe under our kitchen. And then we'll have the rest of the house will just be one story. I really like the idea of being able to be creative with our designs. And I have to say, Doug brought Earthbag construction to me when we were first starting this whole thing, and I was like, no. I was totally against it because I just kept picturing these houses that I've seen that are just, to me, some of them just look like they're made out of trash. And I'm not knocking them. It's whatever your personal choice is. Look, I do like some of the glass, like people use wine bottles and secondhand glass to make these really cool windows. I love that. But the really super eclectic look of Earthbags and Earthbag homes, I wasn't into that. So Doug said, oh no, we can make it, more kind of like an adobe home where you see those in the Southwest all the time. And that I was more down with. And the last pro that I want to talk about with Earthbag houses that we're pretty excited about is, well, two things really. We can use the dirt on our property because, as we showed in a different video, we ran a basic soil test, and our soil composition is going to be very, very beneficial for making an Earthbag house. So we'll be able to use our own dirt, which is so awesome. We don't have to have anything trucked in. The other thing is Earthbag homes are considered non-toxic. So there's very few building supplies that you need to use in an Earthbag home that are considered toxic materials. So that's a huge benefit for us as well.
One of the negative things about Earthbag homes is that, like I said with the rammed earth, if you don't have the right combination of sand to clay on your property, you're going to have to ship that in. So obviously that would up the cost. Most of the time spent is going to be on labor. Earthbag homes are typically very heavy in labor. It's not like putting up a stud wall. You're actually manually, physically filling each bag up and lifting it up. And obviously the higher up the wall you go, the more energy you're going to exude building this thing. There is a limitation to the size of your building. You don't typically want to go higher than 1 story, and we don't want to go past 1 story. We might have some vaulted ceilings here and there, but we want to keep it all 1 story, just so as when we're getting older, you know, we're not having to deal with stairs or moving furniture upstairs and down and all that. The other thing that would be a negative to some people is that the style of building for Earthbag homes typically has a lot of curves in it, and that is for structural strength. So you don't want really straight walls, but you can have them. But when you're done, you might find that simple things like your couch might not butt up against the wall, or your kitchen table doesn't fit where you want it to be, or your cabinets aren't, they're all skewed and out misplaced. But you're going to find that you might have to end up custom making your cabinets and fitting things in unstandardized ways. But I don't really find that a con. I think it's very artistic, and it can be beautiful, and just makes you use creativity in designing your home, which will make it a unique home. We're done talking about construction and that, and we kind of been working on sketches. This is not by far our final design. This is actually a design we did about a month ago, and we've changed our concept. I've actually researched where our sun will be tracking over the property and that, and how we want our building to be angled in that. But this is just more or less to tell you what we want in our home, like basically what we're gonna want, standard things that have to be in there. And we kind of wrote down like we went out and took measurements, like what size bathroom do we want, what size kitchen we want, and we came to these measurements. So we know our measurements, and we've decided that we definitely want a family room. We want a kitchen. I was thinking a round kitchen, but Carrie might decide differently. We have obviously a greenhouse here that we want to put in, and perhaps the root cellar will be even under the kitchen. But is there any other things that you'd want on the property?
Well, yeah, for sure. So I have like a couple of dream, like wish list things. One of those things would be a fireplace of some sort. We were thinking of having it on the inside of the house, because we could probably use that in the winter, especially if it was a wood stove situation where we could cook on it and then also use it to heat the house. Another important thing to me is a nice outside area, like a seating area, patio type area. And we're not really sure where that's all going to be, but we were at first looking at this area over here where we may also have like an outdoor fireplace out there, maybe a pizza oven or something, so it would make sense to have it close to the kitchen. And like he mentioned, a greenhouse, we really think it would be smart to have the greenhouse right next to the kitchen, where we can access things that we're growing, that we're going to be cooking very easily from the greenhouse. So that's important. And then I just want a guest room. Like we mentioned before, all the kids are out of the house, but we still want to have kind of a guest area where when our kids come to visit, or, you know, other family or friends, that they have kind of a separate area to live in, and they're not like crashed out in our family room on the floor. So we had talked about doing like a separate guest area where they could easily access the bathroom facilities. And so we talked about it being kind of separate and detached. And that might be actually one of the first things that we build on the property, just to get us started and maybe have a place for us to stay while we're working on the big part of the house.
Yeah, and very important to me is I've seen all these Spanish courtyards and stuff like this. Maybe in Mexico you've seen them. Mm-hmm. But I definitely want some kind of courtyard on the outside of the living area space, and I also would like to put a courtyard between the guest house and the house itself. And we also want to have some sort of huge like workshop. Mm-hmm. And like I said, these aren't placed where they're at. This was basically designed for the sun comes down and all the rooms shed off of the kitchen. So the kitchen would be your main focus, right? They call the kitchen the heart of the house. Mm-hmm. So the other thing that we wanted and we're really excited about is having a toilet room with with a shower on the outside and a shower on the inside. So an outdoor shower and an indoor shower. And also we kind of want to keep all the plumbing right here. We don't want it scattered throughout the house. We want it all centralized right in this area here. So I would have to just go ahead and put in all the plumbing ahead of time before we start doing this. But having that outdoor shower would be nice in the summer, you know, when it's 120 degrees or whatever. Be something nice. And also this keeps it so that your guests wouldn't have to go through the house to go find the bathroom, because everything would be right here and going in there. And bedrooms, of course, would be on the shaded side of the house. It'd be almost dark in here. If we didn't put windows in here, it'd be pitch black, basically. And all of our light is going to be on this side of the house. So we don't want anything blocking light here. And most of our windows would be on the south side of the house. So, and other things that we're going to have to do is we want our approach to the house to be from the north. So it'd be this side of the house coming up the driveway. And we also we're going to have to put in cisterns. So there'll be a cistern somewhere, maybe over here, or maybe it'll be over here. Anyhow, it's got to be close to, like we said, all plumbing right here. So we want to keep the plumbing to a minimum, the pipes to a minimum, especially because like 4-inch ABS is going for $50 at 8-foot length, right?
Yeah.
So we want to keep the cistern piping to be very short and minimal at best.
Yeah.
She said the guest house, we're talking about animals, building another out of Earthbag structure, animal area, not this close to the house, but you get the gist. It'll be somewhere over here where they'll get that morning sunshine, and then when it gets beating hot, they'll be more in the shade, right?
Yeah.
And so that's basically the things we want. We want some kind of like a laundry room, but we're not going to have, we're figuring that we'll probably be hand washing stuff. So it's not going to be your standard washroom, but like we said, a utility room. But like Carrie was saying, we want to start out with perhaps a guest house so we have a place to stay and a cistern. Those would be our two most important things, and a solar panel closet, so to say, so that we have everything we need in this tiny little guest house. And then we can work our way out into the bigger structure. But we're looking at how many square feet on our dream list. Probably this house that we live in is what?
1,270 square feet.
Yeah, so at least that size. That's a pretty decent size. This has 3 bedrooms, a kitchen, and a living room, a garage, you know. So if we could do that but make it way more interesting looking and more efficient, like I said, everything goes out from the kitchen, so it's just the flow of movement, you know.
Yeah, and it's been actually super fun thinking about like what are our dream wish list items. So, you know, one of the things that I would love is, I love the look of the big wood beams going across the ceiling. And with an Earthbag house, because it is so inexpensive to construct, we'll be able to afford to put money into those really important things like the wood beams. Like, I think we both agree on that. And, you know, the little frilly things that make the house, you know, more special and make it more your own. So that part's been really fun.
We're going to go on to this next section of the video, and this is the part we told you to wait to the end, because I'm going to erase all this. I'll be back after we do this, and we're going to sketch out our initial ideas on a utility shed, which would be basically, you know, like when they send people to a planet in the universe, they would send like that all utility building there that would supply them with all the supplies they need to build on to the rest, right? So that's where we're going to go with this next.
Hey, so we wanted to show you one of the Hyper Adobe bag rolls that we bought. So we're going back and forth between doing just single bags versus the continuous bag, which they are known as Hyper Adobe bags. So the continuous bags, as you can see, come on a roll. And we decided to go with this because we're going to be building a cistern right off the bat. And from what we've read, the Hyper Adobe bags are much more stable for things like water retention, because when you've got a cistern, if you figure you've got all that water in there, and it's a lot of pressure on the walls. So we want to make sure we don't have any problems down the road. So we decided to go ahead and spend the little bit more money that the Hyper Adobe bag style costs, because we think it'll be worth it. So we actually bought these. We bought 2 rolls. We bought them from Volm Companies. It's VOLM. And we'll put a link in the description for that company if it's something that you're interested in. We actually follow Tiny Shiny Home really closely on YouTube, and they are in the process of constructing a really cool chicken garden, and they've used these Hyper Adobe bag, these continuous Hyper Adobe bags. So we took their recommendation and went ahead and purchased those. So the price on these right now is right around $378 for 1 roll. And the rolls, the size roll that we got is 18 inches. It's an 18-inch, so the width on these bags is 18 inches. And then each of these rolls are about 46 pounds. So the diameter on this is right about 25 inches. So they're easy to move around and easy to work with. So Volm Companies was awesome. When I bought them, they had them shipped to us. We had them like 2 days later, I think. Like, it was super fast, and this is what they look like when you get them. So we thought you guys might want to see that if it's something that you're looking at.
So Carrie and I had this little dilemma. Like we said, when we go out there, it's bare land. There's not going to be anything there, okay? We want to put a satellite building there. We call it our utility shed. And we want to kind of combine it as a cistern slash storeroom slash perhaps a solar panel utility room. And we want to put a nice heavy steel door on it and be able to lock things up in there so that we can leave and keep our cheaper tools, the stuff we don't mind if it gets stolen or not, in this building while we're gone. The other thing that we'd have with this building is that it would act as a rain shed to collect water. So my initial idea is, this is a top-down view, so we take it, and they sell roofing, metal corrugated roofing at 12-foot lengths, right? So we make this building 10.5 feet wide, right? With 18-inch walls. And we put a door somewhere. It's not in concrete yet. We don't know where the door is going to be, but that allows us to have a roof, a corrugated roof, go over the entire thing. And we wouldn't have to cut the roof at all, keeping it this length. So this is the top with a water shed on it. I was thinking put a cistern inside here, so as to, and it wouldn't be a huge cistern. It'd be about, what, 7 feet by 5 feet tall or something like that.
Yeah, in the county, there's rules around these things with square footage and things like that. And so you can have an above grade, which means above ground, basically, cistern, as long, I believe it has to be under 5,000 gallons. So you got to do a little bit of math. There's also height to width ratios that you have to stay within for the county. So you got to kind of put a little thought into that. There's online calculators where you can figure the water mass for that type of a shape. So ours is going to be, I think we calculated out with the size that we want that it'll probably hold around 1,500 gallons, which is quite a bit of water.
So anyhow, this would have, the water would shed down this way. So at a side view, we'd be like this, right?
Yeah, angled roof.
Here's the
obviously.
building. It'd be coming down here and up. The cistern obviously would be inside the building. And is why I kind of insist on the cistern being in the building is because of frost. I'm worried about the water freezing and then you are left hung to dry. So the water anyhow would shed down this roof, hit a gutter right here, right? This gutter would back in to the cistern like this. That would be my initial idea. And here's the cistern. Then we were thinking about using some of this other space for solar panel, your converters and all this stuff to hang on the wall, your batteries and stuff like this. And we were talking about putting solar panels directly off the side of the building, right? So anywhere. I mean, we're going to align this with the sun, obviously, but this is my initial utility shed. We put a steel door right here. This is all sandbag with a bolted down hurricane strap roof with joists, which I did not draw there, but the sun would orientate so that wherever we put our solar panels, if we put them here or whatever, it'd be connected to the building and concreted in on these pontoon-like things here. And then you could run your wire directly right into the building, right? Also, all of your plumbing here, you could have plumbing coming off the cistern here on the inside. You could have it on the outside, wherever you want. But this is my idea, and this would be our first building that we build. It would be a utility shed. I call it that because it's solar, it's water, and a big enough room that if you had to throw some sleeping bags in there and bolt that door shut, it'd be a steel door. Yeah, so that's my idea. Carrie, what do you think about this?
I like this idea. We're just really unsure, or at least I am, about whether I won't be doing any drawing. You won't be able to know what I'm drawing if I do the drawing, trust me. So what I'm not sure about is having the cistern on the inside of the utility room. I don't know if that's necessary. In Cochise County, you can build up to a 200 square foot accessory type building, and you don't have to worry about doing any permits or anything for that. So, and that has another reason to do with the size of the shed. But I'm more like, well, gosh, we're going to lose a good portion of square feet by having the cistern on the inside of that. I'd rather personally maximize that square footage for that shed utility area and have more available space. So, but I don't know, like, does a cistern need to have that extra layer of insulation around it that you would get with the exterior of the shed? Or is it just fine sitting there on its own? We're not really sure. So that's really gonna be something that we would love your input on. If you're already out in the Cochise County area and your place is around 3,500 to 3,800 feet high, we would love to hear from you, because that's going to be a big deal. Because if we don't need to put the cistern on the inside, we could just put it next to the shed, and then have even more roof coming out over that cistern to collect rainwater. So kind of trying to decide, and would love your feedback.
So basically, she'd be saying extend the roof line and have a cistern out here is what she's getting at.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, my thing is, I don't want to cut roofing material. I don't want to buy extra roof. And if I can get it all captured and sunk in here, I mean, technically, I guess we could put this out here and just don't put a roof on it at all, and just have the plumbing come in here. That way we regain this space in here. But you know what, guys? This is where you brilliant minds out there are going to help us out, because we kind of, this is our initial sketch and we're trying to figure it out, and we hope and look forward to your comments.
Yeah, thanks so much for following along today. We'll see you soon.